Hey, welcome to the Connected Church. Garth Heckman, affiliated with Bridgeworks or Generations.com. Make sure you check us out. I'm sitting here today going through some notes and thought we'd start a series on generations in regards to the church and connecting the generations in the church. There's a lot of the stuff that we cover one-on-one with churches, denominations, and different pastors who are trying to better evangelize. And the bottom line is really honestly this. We teach generations from the perspective with churches and pastors for one reason, really, to evangelize, for the gospel. And we'll get to a reason in just a few minutes here, but I just want to let you know that's really what we're about. We're about the gospel and about helping churches better evangelize and reach the lost. So when we talk about generations, what are we looking at? Well, you'll see this chart. You have the silent generation, born from 1928 to 1945. Baby boomers, 46 to 64. Gen X, 65 to 1980. Yay, that's me. Millennials, 81 to 96. Gen Z, 97 to 2012. And then you have Generation Alpha, 2013 up through the 2020s. And you have Gen Beta before or after that, but we won't cover much of Gen Beta. So I thought I'd make this a little fun to begin with. Tell me if you know the slang from what generation. So the slang is pull yourself up by your bootstraps. What generation started that? That would be the silent generation. What about 6-7? I think that's kind of obvious, but that would be Alpha. Then we had the slang adulting. You ever hear adulting is hard? Well, that was the millennials. Then you have as if, and that's Gen X. Thank you, that's my gen. And then you have the slang term groovy, which is probably pretty obvious. That's baby boomers. And then if you're counting, you have Riz, R-I-Z-Z. That's Riz, which would be Gen Z. Now, here's the idea behind that. Every generation speaks a different slang. They have different ways to communicate. And with each one of those parallels how we communicate, which now, again, you have Gen Z and Alpha, which is the first generation that are completely digital. They grew up with a phone, a tablet in their hands, and that, again, aligns with different ways we communicate in the workforce and at church. But in case you're wondering what the generations look like, I have a picture of this one. That's Gen X. That's me on the right when I had hair. My wife in the middle, love that hair. My sister-in-law on the left. A lot of Aquanet back then. The ozone layer is not... they're not crying that those hairstyles have gone out. But with that, who's the oldest? This is another way to help you get your mindset in the difference in generations. If I asked you who's older, Bobby Brady from the Brady Bunch, Barbie, Mattel's iconic doll, Madonna, the pop icon, or G.I. Joe, the action figure, who would you guess would be the oldest? It seems obvious, right? But it's not. The oldest would actually be Madonna. She's almost 70. She's still rocking the world like a virgin from what I've been told. I don't know. I've been told that. But again, here's the simple twist on this is we think we perceive generations the way they are clear cut. And we think we know certain things about different generations, and we really don't. When you look at generations by the numbers, population, silent generation, you see about 80 million baby boomers, 80 million. Gen X is really only about 60 million. Millennials, a little more than that, about 70 million. Gen Z, about 70. And Gen Alpha at about 50. Now, the silent generation, baby boomers, they remain obviously the largest cohorts by population. But Gen X and at 60 million is... well, let me back up. Gen Z and millennials together, they're 140 million Americans. And Gen Z, we will see in just a second where they're at in the workforce. This is a generation that is to be reckoned with. And again, you have my generation, 60 million Gen X, which we call the bass player for Led Zeppelin because nobody ever remembers him. Gen X, we kind of feel that way. But this translates in the workforce for today. For those of you who own a company, run a company, 36% of millennials is the largest share of the workforce. 31% Gen X, and that's declining every year. 18% Gen Z, that's growing every year. And baby boomers, 15%. Again, that's declining every year. Gen Zs are said to be the hardest generation to work with. They jump from job to job to job. And the truth is that actually baby boomers jumped jobs more than they did, but baby boomers didn't have social media in which that, made that apparent. They actually jumped jobs much faster than Gen Z. Gen Z has a lot of challenges in working with them, and I will save all the details. But the truth is this: Gen Z can be some of the most productive, creative, and loyal employees if you create the right environment. And so a lot of businesses, even a lot of churches, they see this in and out, of Gen Z coming and going, whether it's attendance at church, whether it's on staff at church, or whether it's in your local workforce. We see this, rotating door, and we get frustrated. But the reality is, if you're in charge, if you're in some type of leadership, it's more on you than them. If you create the right structure, the right system, the right environment, you will be absolutely amazed at how much they will line up with you, how much they will help, how really loyal they can be. And there's a whole lot here to cover. In fact, Bridgeworks has an 8-week course on that. You're more than welcome to reach out to me if you'd like to find out more about that. And we also teach that within churches, within the staff, and within, again, reaching different generations for Christ on Sunday mornings. But here's what's interesting. Church attendance by generation. Silent generation at around 50%, boomers 40, Gen X 30, millennials just a little over 20, and Gen Z just a little under 20. You see how that continually drops. And again, a lot of that goes into the parenting and the modeling that was there, because every generation that's being raised up models their parents' values and morals just a little less. When I was a kid, you didn't go to movies, and then you could go to PG movies, and then you could go to, PG-13 and R-rated movies, and now kids are watching porn on TV. And the thing is simply this: we have to make sure that as parents, we always raise the standard by which we raise our kids and not allow them to live below that standard. But here's what's critical, and this is where I want to end today's teaching. The fastest dropping demographic is the millennial and Gen Z women. A lot of that has to do with feminism. A lot of that has to do with the breakdown of the family, poor father examples, things like that. But let me tell you why that is so critical and why it's so important to understand this, especially in a church. I'm going to give you a scenario, and if you know any teenage girls between 14 and 24, or young girls between 14 and 24, you know this isn't a stretch. You know this is really the way this works. They're called the connectors. So I'll paint a picture for you. A 16-year-old girl comes home from the movies, and mom or dad says, "Hey, how were the movies?" And she says, "Oh, it was okay. Brad Pitt's not as good looking as I think people say he is. But, I saw that one girl there, Taylor. She's the one who has the brother who's really, really weird. And it turns out that he's not weird. He's just really smart. He's got some disease that makes him smart." And the mom's like, "Honey, it's not a disease. It's probably autism." The daughter continues, and her dad is the new police chief in the suburb of Westing. And so we should probably tell dad that, as much as he likes to speed. And she does this download, right? She has this download of things that she found out at the movies from this girl, Taylor. And then my dog's being a pain in the butt. Shush. And then the next week or a couple weeks after, you and your kids run into that family, and your daughter's like, "Oh, that's Taylor and her mom." And you begin to talk to mom, and you say, "Hey, I hear your husband's the new police chief at Westing, and your son's really intelligent. Oh, he has autism. Hey, have you gone to the women's Bible study on Tuesday mornings?" You see this web that connects between those ages, young women between 14 and 24, because that's just their natural tendency. They have what's called the gift of gab. But that gift of gab, even though sometimes we think it in a negative way or gossip, it's actually a connectivity in the church. It acts as a huge glue. People meet people through that age group and through those young women. So as you can see, as those women are being pulled out of church because of feminism, poor parenting, social media, we lose a lot of that connectivity. Now, here's the point I want to make. Anytime you see anything that is in realms of tearing generations down, it's ultimately Satan who's attacking the family, and this is a direct attack on the family. That's why we want to make sure we understand these trends, and then how to combat against those in the church. So, how are the ways you combat against those in the church? Well, that's why you talk to me at Bridgeworks, generations.com, or reach out to me at heckman@generations.com. I'd love to work with you in your church to describe more, to give more. But until then, stay tuned. We'll have more information out every few days. And again, reach out to me at heckman@generations.com. Love to work with you for the sake of the gospel.